March 6th, 1989, and we're down in Clearwater, Florida, at Grandma and Grandpa's for the future of our family and see how much family history we can extract from these wonderful people. So we're talking about, why don't you tell me what your name is and when you were born?
My name is Roy Nosek. I was born in 1916 on May 22nd.
So today that makes you?
And today that makes me 72 years old, and in May, on May 22nd this year, I'll be 73.
73 years old, okay. And where were you born?
I was born in Cicero, Illinois.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay.
I'm sure you don't remember it either.
I don't either, no. Okay, can you tell me, what was your earliest childhood memory? Can you remember?
Well, my first earliest childhood memories that I can remember is that I had a teacher, and it was Miss Stelzer, and she was a very large woman, not robust and fat, but pretty and tall. And I remember one day she picked me up and kissed me.
Oh.
Well, that's
What
an
brought
early
that
childhood. I don't know. She just kissed me, and I don't know to this day why she did. And I can also remember my second grade teacher, and her name was Miss Coon, C-O-O-N. So that's.
Did she kiss you too?
No, she didn't kiss me.
I wondered how.
But Miss Delta, but she was a nice teacher too. And that was a public school. And then from there I went to St. Leonard's and was in the first class of the school at St. Leonard's in Berwyn.
So you started there in third grade, and that's the year that St. Leonard's was founded,
right.
That their school was founded.
That's
there?
true.
So you came from one of the first graduating classes?
Oh yes. No, well, not one. That was
you were in third grade when you started.
So there were others that were started in 8th grade.
Yeah. Was that a pretty big class then? Did a lot? No.
It was a small school behind the church in part of the same building, and we had 2 grades in each class. And there were 4 rooms, so 2 times 4 is 8.
Is that the same building that's there today, or did
no? The building that was there was taken down for the new church, which happened a long time
after
ago.
you were out of grade school, built another
okay.
school.
Where do we go from here?
Okay. Well, we'll just continue right on.
All right.
When did you move to Berwyn then? If you were born in Cicero.
I moved to Berwyn when I was 3 years old. My family moved west from Cicero to Berwyn. The dividing line was Lombard Avenue, so it was immediately adjoining.
Okay. So then, what about your siblings? When were they born? How old were you when? Who came next? Was it Dodie or Frank?
Dodie. Dolores came.
And was that before you moved to Cicero?
No.
I mean, before you were born.
We moved to Berwyn.
After you moved to Berwyn. So, and Dodie and Uncle
Frank
Frank
were born in Berwyn.
Do you remember them? Your mom coming home from the hospital?
No.
With them or anything?
No, I don't remember that.
Remember that.
Sorry, I can't help you.
Now, did you walk to school? Did you walk to St. Leonard's from where you lived?
Definitely walked to St. Leonard's and walked to Laverne School, which was a grammar school that I started.
Walk both ways?
Back and forth.
Yeah, did your mom have to come and
No, nobody
you?
came.
No, you just toughed it out all by yourself.
It wasn't that far.
Okay. What about in your...
No, not too many playmates. Dave Topping lived 2 doors away and then moved down 2 blocks. And Ed Cerveny was in school with me. He has since passed on. And that basically, we had kids, neighbors, and so forth who played with us. That's about it.
See, I didn't know all of that. I knew that you knew them, from almost forever, but I didn't know that was, they were neighborhood friends.
That's right, Toppings was neighborhood. And, yeah, we had other friends too.
Now, what kind of things would you guys do as young boys growing up in the neighborhood in Berwyn?
Well, depends upon what age we were. I remember I had a fight with Dave Topping,
Uh-oh.
and
A fist fight?
yeah, fist fight. He was bigger than I was too, and I hit him right in the mouth,
Uh-oh.
and then I ran home, and he couldn't kiss me. That's true.
Reminds
Of course, he lives in Arkansas now.
Yeah. Did you ever have any fights with Ed Zervany?
Not really.
No?
No.
He was a little milder mannered, huh?
No, he was.
What about? Did you
I had a
remember?
fight in school. You want to hear about the fight I
Yeah.
had in school? Well, there was two kids from Stickney, which is a town adjoining ours on the south, that were pretty tough kids, and they were somewhat older than we were. And this was when I was about 7th grade, I guess, or 6th grade. And we got into we're going home from school, and it's Zervany, Hugh McSweeney, and myself, and Golick and Pepe Konitsky were starting to tease me and prod me into getting into a fight. And I took about as much as I could, and it was about a half a block away from home, or a block away from home. And Ogden Avenue at that time was very narrow, and there was the dirt apron on it. It was joining a bakery. And this Pepe Konitsky really got after me, and then I turned around and I started to fight with him. And I beat him up pretty good. He was a toughie. He hung around at grammar school. Now he was older now. He was still in grammar school, but they hung around pool halls and so forth and so on. Two guys watched the taller of the guy that I was fighting, and I beat him up, and boy, I was really concerned going back to school the next day, because I thought that Sister Dolores, who was the teacher at that time, was going to really give me the dickens because of fighting. But she heard about the fight, and so did everybody in school, and I gave him a bloody nose and everything. He tried to wrestle and get me down, and he couldn't do that. Well, in any event, I was afraid I was going to reprimanded in some punishment. And she said to me, "I understand you had a fight yesterday afternoon after school." I said, "Yes, sister, I did." And she says, "Well, I understand that you did very well." And I kind of looked at her like this. And I said, "Yes, sister, I guess I did." She says, "Well, that's good. He deserved it," she says. "And I'm glad somebody gave him a beating." So I was the hero around the school.
That surprised you. And then they didn't. Now, did anybody hire you to be their bodyguard after your sons?
Well,
when they were that age, they were.
I wasn't
Kind
big.
of got their size
I
after.
wasn't that I am now. I was an unknown kid.
Well, maybe you just fast reflexes and.
Whatever I did right. I was fighting with my fists, and he wanted to. He was getting beaten. He knew he was getting beaten, and he tried to wrestle me. And he fell to the ground, and then I broke loose again. And then when he got up, I started hitting him again.
You know, like after school when you and Dave and Ed would get together. Now, did you play baseball or?
Well, Dave was about 3 years older than we were, and when we were going to school, we played baseball and football and the usual things that kids play. I'm talking about still from grammar school. I'm not talking high school.
Now, in the summertime, did you stay in Berwyn for the whole summer? Or?
No, my father belonged to a club known as the Wabana Athletic Club in Fox Lake, Illinois, and it was a clubhouse had an attic upstairs that had cots in it, single cots, and downstairs there were 4 rooms where were bedrooms for the ladies, and the ladies and the children slept downstairs, and the men and the kids slept upstairs. And you paid 25 cents a night to kick into the kitty, and you made your own food, and they take turns, the different groups of people for dinner and breakfast and so forth and so on. It was right on the lake, and they had some boats and oars, and we used to go out and row the boats. Some of them had the electric motors, members that had those. We didn't have one, but occasionally I'd get a ride from forth and so on. And they had an outhouse in the back. And it wasn't the best of accommodations, but it was something for us, and we enjoyed it very much.
Now, where was that located?
In Fox Lake, Illinois.
Fox Lake. Okay, so
Just, where the lake house is now. It's only about 20 miles from here.
now, would you go out fishing? I know your mother
No,
was. Your
my
mother
mother was
quite
yeah,
a
I used to go
fisherwoman,
fishing
wasn't
with my mother in the boat, and I'd row the boat and she'd fish, or we'd fish off the pier. And
did you cook them and eat them, or?
yeah, we cooked them there and ate them. That was the norm. That was real good.
Were most of these people
Bohemian,
Bohemian
yeah, most
background
of them
too?
Bohemian
So you had
background.
good Bohemian cooking
Yeah.
when you got together
Oh,
like
yeah.
that? Do you remember some of the other people? Were they close friends of yours?
Well, there were quite a few families there. I mean, they weren't there all at the same time, kind of reserved the time when you would want to be there with others, and then, but there was quite a group. And on weekends, there'd be more people there because men had to work. And the mothers and the families would stay, and then they'd take turns,
So then they have, during the week, they'd have all these young boys running around in that upstairs cart,
No,
running
no,
wild with
no,
no fathers?
you couldn't run up there. It was all the cots were there. There was just a runway right down the middle, and then they'd sleep on either side.
I'm just thinking, all you young guys up there, no dads.
Well, it wasn't young guys. It was, we were kids. We weren't, we weren't 20, 25 years
No,
old.
no, you were 10, 12 years old.
Well, 10, 12 years old.
Yeah.
Next door, it was 2 doors down from where it was a National Athletic Club, and they had a big pier. We had a smaller pier, but we used to swim over on over on their end because they had better facilities. And somebody came around with a boat one day, and the guy and a gal had it. This gal stopped, and something happened, and I was just around the boat and started to talk to him. We didn't have skis at that time. We had surfboards. And I was asking, give me a ride on a surfboard, give me a ride on. And the guy that was with this gal, he wasn't too keen about my going out. So the girl says, "Oh, go on, take him for a ride out there." So okay, so he took me, and then I got dumped off way out in the lake, and my mother was sitting on the pier 2 doors down where Walbana was, and there I was, stranded out, and this guy went off without me.
Oh,
And I was
what
standing,
a rat!
I ended up swimming back off of the way on my own.
Do you have a life jacket?
No, I was just swimming. And it ends up that I finally got to shore, And Dave came out partway with a rowboat and got me too there, but I swam a long way before he got me. Well, that's
Did
it.
you think that might be?
No.
I'd have been worried about that time, I can tell you. Well, now, let's see, Aunt Dodie is how much younger than you?
Aunt Dodie is 3 years younger than I.
And Uncle Frank is
6 years younger than
6
I.
years younger. So, you don't remember them coming home, but then I suppose you being the oldest, you probably had to help quite a bit around the house.
Yes, I had to work around I was at work, but and my father was very insistent that I did. He was pretty strict. He could be gracious and help, nice. He was like taking us to the lake and stuff like that, but he could be tough. And it was tough.
Well, in another part of the interview, we'll go in and we'll talk about your parents and somewhat about that, but let's go back into
Growing up.
Growing
I
up.
graduated from St. Leonard's in 8th grade, and from there I went to Morton High School. I didn't go to a Catholic school. I went to Morton High School, and that was some 3 miles away. And I used to hitchhike to school. And
It was a lot safer back in those days.
yeah, a lot safer back then. And I ended up going to school there for 4 years and graduated. Graduated from grammar school in 1930, graduated from high school in 1934, and I was active in school on the boxing team, and I got a letter, school letter for boxing, and we had boxing tournaments and things like that. And I didn't play football, I didn't play baseball. My father was against my playing football, didn't like that at all. In baseball, I didn't play for the school, but we did play hardball and softball on a neighborhood team. Hugh McSweeney and Cerveny and the guys who I went to school with in St. Leonard's, and then I went on to Morton.
What about your studies at school?
My studies were, I was a good student. I wasn't top or honor roll student or anything. I was a devilish kind of a guy. I was always full of hell and doing things that mischievous, you know. But other than that,
good student.
but I was
Not a serious student, but a good
no,
student.
I wasn't a really
You had to have a good time, huh?
I had to have a good time.
Now, was Ed in the same class as you?
Ed certain same class as I was, yes.
And did he go to Morton Grove too?
Morton's high school, we went to Morton.
Okay, now, this not being a Catholic school was probably co-ed.
It was co-ed.
Yeah, and did you have proms and dances?
Oh,
and
yeah,
homecoming?
proms and dances. I went to the proms. And,
Now, what kind of music would you have at dances?
oh, we
like
had
that?
good music. I'm talking about music that was really music in those days.
Some you could dance to.
Well, certainly
Some
something.
you could hold a girl in your arms and swing her
Yeah,
around
well,
the
I
floor.
had two girls in my arms too. But never held Evelyn into my arms. That Evelyn came a long time after all that happened.
After the high school business.
All right.
Do you remember your first date?
I remember all my dates.
Was that because there were so...
No.
Or just a few that really meant a
I was going
lot?
with the girl next door. The one, she went to Morton High School too.
And what was her name?
But her name was Vivian. And I went out with her, went to school with her. She was a neighbor. And Dave Topping and Louise. And after after high school, we used to go together. And we'd go to Twin Lakes, Wisconsin. We'd go other places. And that was basically. Then I broke up with her, and it ended up that.
How old were you now? About 16, 17 years old?
Oh, when we were going to high school, yeah. 16 years old, 17 years old. I graduated when I was 18, and I would say that I'm not broke up with her. I can't remember the research.
About how
But
long do you think you went with her? A couple years?
Oh,
or
3-4 years, I guess.
4 years?
Oh, well, growing up, maybe even longer than that. And
Did
then I
the
went
Toppings, Uncle Dave and Aunt Louise,
well,
they
yeah,
dated?
well, they used to live there.
Yeah.
And then Dave,
But they dated each other all the time?
yeah, they dated each other, and then we used to go out together. And then moved prior to, prior to our knowing Louise came out of Evergreen Park, that area, south side of Chicago, or suburbs of Chicago. And we ended up in summertime going to high school and grammar school, I think, 8th grade, 7th grade, in an onion field pulling onions. And you'd have to table onions. And you'd have to wrap them off, then pull the roots off, and then pull the brown tops off, and then take 6 of those and put those 6 in one bunch, and take a string around the 6 onions, that were table onions, and take 6 of the bunches then and put them in the big bunch, and put another string around those, and you'd get a penny for that. But you gotta sit on your butt
You had to
and
do a lot.
Then you start out in the morning and end up in the afternoon, and if you were lucky and pulled a lot of onions, you made $1.
Boy. Paid
Penny
to
a
work
bunch,
fast though,
yeah.
right? The
Paid to
faster you
work.
work, the better. Well,
the more you made.
where was this onion field?
It was about a half a block away from where Dave's house was, Dave Topping's house.
And Uncle Dave did that, and
Uncle
Servant
Dave
did
was,
that too?
no, certainly didn't do that. Certainly didn't.
So you guys worked in the onion field.
Right.
Well, you couldn't do that all summer long.
Oh, well, you did it during the summer. I mean,
But what? Was
well,
that
we did other things. I used to caddy when I was a kid. Going to, even grammar school, I started caddying for about 12, 13 years old, 14 years old. I used to hitchhike about 10 miles. There were no streetcars. Then took me out to Edgewood Valley Country Club, where the golf course was, and I'd make a buck caddy, and I'd hitchhike back one there in the morning so I could sign up, and then maybe I could go out the second time. After the first 18, chance to go out the second time. I used to make $1 for one round of golf, 18 holes. And maybe if you went out the second time, you make $2. And my mom would be waiting home for me to we had a pretty tough sailor. Sometimes I couldn't get a ride at night, and I'd cry and home about 7 miles. But it was a long way.
You started to play golf then?
No, I didn't start to play golf. I couldn't afford to play. Well, I could have caddy for nothing, but I didn't have any sticks.
How much did it cost to pay a round of golf?
Private country, a private course. It was membership only. And I don't know what the fees were for fees and so forth and so on, but you play as often as you want. And they had to spend so much money in the clubhouse. There was no streetcars going on. It was just,
But your dollar tip, that was pretty big money.
it wasn't $1 tip. It was
It was the pay.
care of the pay. Well, actually, it was 25 cents an hour, and it usually take about 3 to 4 hours. So you'd make $1 a round. Sometimes you'd go out twice, or you'd make $2. But then you'd get caught, and you couldn't get home sometimes, and that would be bad, you know. Well, so much for that, and from there on, I went later on. I got out of high school and went to Beardsley and Piper, to Western Electric first. No, I went to my father's cousin had started a drugstore in Cicero on Austin Boulevard and 22nd Street, Cermak Road now. And got a job at that drugstore and started at 8 o'clock in the morning and worked till midnight. And I would work that first week I worked for 6 days. It's closed on Sunday, and my pay was $1
For that whole week?
for the whole week. No, $5, I should say, not $1.
So weren't you ready to go back to caddying?
No, $5. And well, that was caddying. This was not the summertime anymore.
Okay,
So it ends up that I was looking for a job then, and I was there about 4, 6 months, I guess. And I got a job at Western Electric.
Before we go into Western Electric now, why don't you tell us what types of things did you do at the drugstore?
At the drugstore, I did everything. I worked behind the soda fountain, made sodas, and we also had a cook there that cooked. And then he would
Nibble
make.
along the way here?
I'd nibble. I'd get my.
Did you have to
my
eat
lunch.
your mistakes?
No, I got my lunch, or I got the food. That was helpful. But I used to make sundaes and sodas, and I'd serve the food at the counter, you know. So basically, that's what I was doing. But I'd also go behind the counter where they sold the cigars and so forth. If somebody wasn't there, came in and.
What about stocking and marking prices?
To make sure we had, when you run out of something, you have to put it on the want list and make sure that you got it and report it. So that went on for about 6 months. And I finally got a job at Western Electric on 25th and Rockwell. And a man that was a school teacher was working there because at that time it was Depression. We didn't have a lot of jobs. he would pick me up, and I would give him $1 a week for gas, for transportation back and forth. This was in Chicago. And it ends up that I worked there for 6 months. I got interesting though how I got the job. It was in the wintertime. It was very cold, and I went to Western Electric. As a result, my aunt Anna had 2 boarders that lived with her. She was a little hunchback woman, crippled, in Chicago, and they worked there. And they induced me then to try to get a job there when I was looking for a job. And I did get to go there, and I went, I've been going there for two weeks, and it was wintertime. And I was turned down and couldn't get a job at all. They took so many people, and I just didn't hit it. And then they weren't hiring too much. I went back again, below zero, 10 below zero. And outside, I'm standing waiting to open the door, and I'm the only guy there this time. This guard at the door that opened the door said, "Boy, kid, your ears are frozen." Went out and got some stone and washed my ears with the snow. And Tony says, "You've been coming here for 3 weeks." And he says, "I'm going to see what I can do for you." So he picked up the phone. He says, "Look, 10 below zero out there. I got one kid out here, and the only one that's here. And we should have something for him because he'll be coming back for 3 weeks. And see what we can do."
We got a hard worker, right?
So they called him back and says, "Send him up." They sent me upstairs. I got the job, and that's how I got acquainted with the fellow that drove me back and forth to work. And I worked in the pre-analyzation department, and my job was taking a cart that a lift truck deal that you pump up by hand, and you'd put these big barrels on it, or the other things that you had, and I was taking up old telephones at my bench, taking them out of these barrels and smashing them up with a hammer and throwing them into another container, a round barrel, and then I did that all day long. Or I would cut parts of switchboards up that had to be broken and damaged so people couldn't reuse them. And I'd go up and down this freight elevator, and the boss come up to me and told me, he says, "Well, you're doing a good place." And I said, "Well, that's fine." I worked there for about 6 months, and lo and behold, my girlfriend,
This isn't Vivian.
this is Vivian,
Still Vivian, okay.
This is Vivian's uncle, was working at Beardsley and Piper Company, and he in turn was the assistant chief engineer at the company. And when I was over there visiting and so forth, I met him, and he'd be at the dining room table drawing and making some sketches and so forth. And I took an interest in what he was doing, and he asked me, "What do you got a definite interest in this?" He says, "Where are you working?" I told him where I worked, and he says, "What do you make?" And I told him what I made.
And what was it? Do you remember how?
What I made?
Yeah.
I made $17.50 a week. And it ends up that he said to me, he says, "Look, we can use a kid like you. When I go in the office tomorrow, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I don't want to be doing what I'm doing all my life. I want to get ahead. And I'd like to get into someplace where I can grow." I said, "Well, this is a company we can grow in." So
You're about 19 years old now?
Yeah, I'm about 18 years old, and he said, "You can, it's good company." So he came back the next night. He says, "You got a job. So you tell your company that you want this, that you're going to go to work for another company." So I did. Next day I told him I'm going to work for the company's boss, my boss, come up to me. I told him that. He says, "You can't quit." I said, "What do you mean I can't quit?" He said, "You're a good worker. You're going to go someplace." And I says, "Well, I know this is a very big company. I appreciate the fact that I got a job, and gave me a job, but I'm afraid I'm going to leave. So he went to the superintendent, and the superintendent came to see me. He says, you do a real good job. You work hard. You work harder than anybody else around you. And he says, you can go places in this company. I said, well, I appreciate what you're saying, and I believe what you're saying. But I feel as though that there were so many people in this company for me to get anywhere. And that my chances of going to work for a smaller company are better, and I can accede to a better position and progress faster. And he in turn said, well, I can appreciate what you're saying, but he says, you could do it, you could go do very well here. And, but if this is your decision and you want to make it, he says, I want you to know we'd like to keep you, but you have to. So I thanked him. His name was Johnson. And I went to work for Beardsley and Piper, and I just grew up. Piper found me, went up and down there. He was on a trip around the world for about 6 months. And he came back. I was taking the foundry lecture course because we were in the foundry business, supplying equipment. And by the time he came back, I got out of being a blueprint boy, and I was doing another job, going down and getting.
This was your first job, was a blueprint?
As a blueprint boy.
And what was it? Did you make
well,
the
I made.
blueprints?
I would take drawings and put them on a machine that with a glass, and you'd put the drawing on with a paper behind it, and a lamp would come down, and it would. It was very bright. The can wouldn't go through the canvas, but it would print on the paper from the transmitting the light through the print.
Right.
And then you would, after that happened, you'd roll back the canvas and take the print out, and you'd take the print and put it on in a trough, a vertical trough, and you'd clamp it in there, and you'd take a brush and paint the potash, is what it was, over the paper, and that would draw out the print of the drawing that you had. You'd flush it down with water, and you'd take it off, and then
take a break here, folks, because it's starting to rain.
Go into the machine that would take it with a belt and dry the print. And it would roll right through the print. Then you had a drawing that you could take down.
Let me get these socks off here.